Hi everyone, this is chapter 4, specifically 4.3, and we're going to be looking at dividing a polynomial by a monomial, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first step is here, let's just break everything out with the denominator below it. So I'll have 4x to the 5th divided by 2x squared minus 8x to the 4th all over 2x squared. And then from there, we can divide as well as use the quotient rule. So let's do some simplifying here. 4 divided by 2 is just 2 over 1. And then 8 divided by 2 is just 4 over 1. And then let's rewrite this. We'll have 2, let's put it right here. We'll have 2x 5 minus 2. Again, I'm utilizing the quotient rule here. Minus 4x to the 4th minus 2. And what that will leave me with is 2x to the 3rd power minus 4x squared. And we'll leave it like that. So all we did was break them apart, giving each numerator its own denominator, doing some simple division, and then utilizing the quotient rule, and then simplifying our answer. And yeah, so that one's fairly easy. Go ahead and do 1B on your own. Right here, we're going to be doing roughly the same thing here. It's just presented in a different way. So we'll have 24x v to the 3rd all over our negative 3x to the 3rd v to the 5th. Minus 11x to the 3rd v to the 5th all over negative 3x to the 3rd v to the 5th. Okay. So there's a lot going on here, and I want to just emphasize here this x has a 1 above it, just so if you want to put it there, you can. You don't have to do that. But that 24x to the 1st power I put there just to help with the visualization of us utilizing the quotient rule. So from there, 24 divided by negative 3 is negative 8 over 1. When I utilize the quotient rule here, x to the 1st, or should I say x to the 1st minus 3, would give me an x squared down here. And then I would have v 3 minus 5 would be negative 2, so I'll have v to the 2nd power down there. Since I have two negatives, I can convert those to positives. You can't divide 3 by 11. X to the 3rd, x to the 3rd. Even if you were to do quotient rule, that would be x 3 minus 3, which is 0. X to the 0 power is just 1. So that's 0 power rule. And that's the same thing for here, so those cancel. Thus, we are left with negative 8, and then below it, we have x squared v squared plus 11 over 3. And there we go. So, again, it's best to go slow. Make sure you think about everything. Make sure you don't make any mistakes. Make sure you're utilizing the properties of the exponents correctly. So, again, that your final simplified answer does not come out incorrect. Okay, here we have polynomial long division. over to the right-hand side in red, I have listed some steps that we're going to utilize. We're first going to divide, then multiply, and then subtract. So the first thing we want to do is we'll write out our divisor, which is going to be x plus 2. And then our dividend is going to be 3x squared plus 9x plus 4. All right. Now this is when the steps are utilized, basically. So the first step is to divide. Well, what I'm going to do is divide this 3x squared by this x. In other words, I'm basically using quotient rule. So 3x squared divided by x would just give me 3x. So now that I divided to get that 3x, what I'm going to do is multiply this 3x to the x, and then I'm going to multiply it to the 2. So 3x times x gives me 3x squared. Then I'm going to do 3x times 2. That gives me a positive 6x. So the first step was to divide. I took that 3x squared, divided it by x. So you have the bases are the same, right? So I'd have 2 minus 1, which just gave me x. So I have 3x. To get the top, then I multiplied that 3x by x. It gave me 3x squared. I also multiplied it by the 2 to give me 6x. And the last step, and then we'll have to utilize it probably again at some other point in some future problems here. But our last step is to subtract. 3x squared minus 3x squared is just 0. 9x minus 6x is 3x. And then we need to bring down our 4. And what we need to do is do the process all over again. I am going to take, and I'll do a different color this time, I'm going to take this 3x that we have down here at the bottom, this 3x here, and I'm going to divide it by x. 3x divided by x is a positive just 3. Then I'm going to multiply 3 by x. That gives me 3x. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtraction is my last step. 3x minus 3x is 0. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So there's nothing further we can do, so we have a remainder of negative 2. So what we'll write as our answer is we'll have quotient of 3x plus 3, and then remainder of negative 2. And that will be our answer. So if you utilize these 3 steps until you get to your remainder, sometimes your remainder will be 0, then you're good. So it's just 3 steps: divide, multiply, and subtract. So I tried to make it as simple as possible as one could do on these. They do get a little bit longer, as we're about to see. So let's do 4A. Make sure that you give 3B a try on your own, and we'll go over it in class. So here's a problem type 2. All that means is that it's just a little bit harder than a problem type 1. So let's write out our divisor here. 5x plus 3. And then our dividend is 15x to the third plus 24x squared plus 14x plus 6. Okay. Our steps again are to divide, multiply, and then subtract. Okay. I'm going to take that 15x to the third, and I'm going to divide it by that 5x. What that gives me is, and I'll do it in purple, that gives me 3x squared. So I just divided 15x to the third divided by 5x. I'm going to now multiply the 3x squared by the 5x. That gives me 15x to the third. 3x squared times a positive 3 gives me a positive 9x squared. That was step 2. Step 3 is to subtract. 15x to the third minus 15x to the third is 0. 24x squared minus 9x squared is 15x squared. Let's use a different color here. Oh, and what I need to do is bring down, and I'll do it in purple. I need to bring down the 14x. Now we got to do everything over again. Start with dividing here. 15x squared divided by 5x is 3x. Now I multiply. 3x times 5x gives me 15x squared. 3x times 3 gives me 9x. Last step is to subtract. 15x squared minus 15x squared is 0. 14x minus 9x gives me 5x. We need to bring down the 6 and do our steps all over again. We'll do green. 5x divided by 5x, well, that's just 1. Now we multiply. 1 times 5x is 5x. 1 times 3 is 3. And 5x minus 5x is 0. 6 minus 3 is just 3. So our answer is this, and I'm going to have to move everything over just to make some room. Our answer is that our quotient and then we're going to have our remainder below it. Our quotient is our 3x squared plus 3x plus 1. And then our remainder is 3. Okay. So again, doing these steps, and honestly, it does take practice and skill to get good at these. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by looking at something like this. Again, it is just doing it in repetition and understanding the steps. And once you know the steps, you'll see that these are really easy. They're just time consuming. All right, problem type 3. This is probably the hardest type problem you're going to get here. And what it wants us to do with these, and this is how technically we should be writing our answers, is it says write your answer in the following form. Our quotient, and then we'll have our remainder over our divisor, which is why I was utilizing those vocabulary terms up at the top. You would have saw those vocabulary terms going back to elementary school. You've seen these probably your whole life. But let's go ahead and jump into the problem here. So what we have is negative 14x to the third plus 10x squared minus 12x to the fourth. Okay, that's standing out to me. Plus 20 plus 17x divided by negative 2x squared plus 3. That's why we have a note in here. The dividend is not in standard form. Standard form would have your exponents in descending order. So we'll do that when we write it out. So our divisor is negative 2x squared plus 3. And then our dividend is, now we want to put everything in order here. I have a negative 12x to the fourth. Oops. Negative 12x to the fourth minus 14x to the third plus 10x squared plus 17x and then plus 20. Okay. Now from there, we utilize the same steps. This time I'm not going to write them down. You can challenge yourself right now by trying to write them down by memory. But we're going to jump right into it. So I need to do first division. Negative 12x to the fourth divided by negative 2x squared. Let's do it in different color here. That is going to give me 6x squared. Gives me 6x squared. Now that I did my division, now I need to do multiplication. 6x squared minus 2x squared gives me negative 12x to the fourth. Then I need to do 6x squared times 3. Well, that gives me 18x squared. So notice something here. There's a gap. When there is a gap, that is fine. Don't be alarmed. You'll see what we do here in a second. Our next step is to subtract. Negative 12x to the fourth minus negative 12x to the fourth is just 0. We need to bring down this negative 14x to the third. 10 minus 18 is negative 8x squared. And then I need to bring down my 17x. And now we just repeat the process over again. Let's do blue. Negative 14x to the third divided by negative 2x squared. That gives me 7x. 7x times negative 2x squared gives me negative 14x to the third. 7x times 3 gives me good positive 21x. Now I need to subtract 14x to the third minus 14x to the third gives me 0. I bring down my negative x squared. 17 minus 21 gives me negative 4x. I bring down my positive 20. And let's do it all over again. Negative 8x squared divided by negative 2x squared. That gives me just 4. 4 times negative 2x squared gives me negative 8x squared. 4 times 3 is 12. Now we minus. Negative 8x squared minus negative 8x squared, 0. We bring down our negative 4x. 20 minus 12 is 8. So we are done. And now we need to write our answer here. So we first need to write our quotient. Our quotient is up there at the top. That is the 6x squared plus 7x plus 4. Now we also need to write then plus, kind of give it a little bit of space here, plus our remainder, which was negative 4x plus 8, all over our divisor. And our divisor, if you recall, was negative 2x squared plus 3. So a lot of steps involved here, but that's the proper way of writing out our answer. What I want you to do is go ahead and try to do 5B on your own. Now, with this problem, you might struggle a little bit here, because if you notice, it goes from, you have x to the 4th power, x to the 3rd power, x squared, but there's no just x. So what you would need to utilize in your dividend is you would have your plus 4x squared, and then you need to add in your 0x, and then your plus 15. Okay, so I just did the back end of your dividend. And then you would go from there. Also, if you fully don't understand 2, what I would recommend is you pause the video. A good study and technique that I would like for you to do and get used to is, right now you're listening to a video and you want to be able to kind of figure things out a little bit on your own. Of course, I'm going to go over it in class. But try to research other videos out there that kind of teach you maybe even a better way of doing it than me, and also how to utilize that 0 in there. It doesn't change anything we've done, so you shouldn't have any issues with it. It's just a 0. So you know how to multiply with a 0, you know how to minus with a 0, so it doesn't really change anything. But you just add it into your divisor. So 5C here, the dividend is missing a term. So I would have to use a 0 as well. So the same thing we had to do above. Our divisor is x minus 3. And then our dividend is x to the 3rd power. Notice then it goes into negative 11x. But what I need to add in is plus 0x squared minus 11x plus 6. Okay. And now we can work with our problem. And so this is what I was talking about with the problem above. You're going to have to add in the 0 in there. It doesn't change anything that we do. So the first step is here to divide 8 to the x to the 3rd power divided by x just gives me, let's do purple again. That just gives me x squared. Now we multiply. That would give me x to the 3rd minus 3x squared. We're going to minus that. That gives me 0 minus 3x squared. I'm going to bring down my negative 11x. From there, we need to do the same process again. Negative 3x squared divided by x is just negative 3x. Oh, forgive me here. Because it's 0 minus a negative, that actually turns into a positive. Okay. Sorry, so 0 minus negative 3. That turns into a positive 3x squared. So this at the top is going to be positive 3x. Now we multiply. You get 3x squared minus 9x. We're going to subtract again. That gives me 0. Negative 11x minus negative 9x is negative 2x. I bring down my 6. And we do the process all over again. Let's do, we haven't done blue yet. Negative 2x divided by x is just negative 2. Negative 2 times 2, negative 2 times x gives me negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 6 gives me a positive 6. We're going to minus. If you notice, I get a remainder of 0. that means that my divisor is factorable of my dividend. It's a factorable of, or it's able to be factored from my dividend. So my answer is, we just leave it as our x squared plus 3x minus 2. If we had a remainder, then we'd have to do our remainder over our divisor. Okay, so now we're doing something new here. We have a lot of writing, but there's steps that are supposed to help you. So what we have here is synthetic division. Synthetic division is a nice way to minimize the amount of writing needed compared to long division. That is true. However, synthetic division only works if the divisor is a linear equation, or x plus a number. Let's do the above problem again, but with synthetic division. Over on the right-hand side, you'll have the steps for you here. I'm going to kind of verbalize them and just go over everything. So what we have here is we have our x minus 3 to the right-hand side, right? Our divisor. Almost treat it like it's x minus 3 plus 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. And you would add 3 to both sides, right? Just say for the sake of understanding. Your x would be 3. Or, in other words, you just take the opposite of negative 3 and make it a positive 3. And what you would do is you would write it out here. Okay. And then you write your box. So again, I had a negative 3 here, but I made it a positive 3 over to the left. If this was a positive 3, then you would have made that a negative 3. Just take the opposite. Okay, so now what we do is we write out our coefficients. So this is really 1x to the third power, right? So we have a 1. We can't forget that after x to the third power is x squared, but there is not 1, so it's implied it's 0. Then we have negative 11. And then we have our 6. Once we have that, what we do is we bring down our 1 and we put it right there. Okay? Then what you're going to do is you do 1 times 3, and that gives me 3. Zero plus 3 is 3. 3 times the 3 up there to the left, up there on the top left, this right here. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 11 plus 9 is negative 2. Negative 2 times 3 gives you negative 6. 6 plus negative 6 is 0. So what that leaves us with is our x squared. This is our x to the first power. This is x to the 0 power. And then this right here is our remainder. Okay. So our answer then, how do we write our answer? Our answer is, since I have 1x squared, that's just x squared, plus 3x minus 2. I have a remainder of 0, so I don't need to write my remainder over my divisor. So that is just my answer. So as you see, it might seem confusing at the beginning, but again, once you do it over again, and I'll do 4a together with you, and then you'll do 4b. But once you get it, honestly, it makes everything so much easier, and it's a lot cleaner than I think doing the long division form. So here we have 4a. I'm looking at this part right here. Since it's a positive 3, what do I have to make that 3 over here? Should have said negative. And then we have our box. We have a coefficient of 2. Then we have a coefficient of 4. And then we have a coefficient of -6. And then 3. And then 8. Okay. So I'll do it in different colors this time. We're going to bring down our 2. 2 times -3 is -6. 4 plus -6 is -2. 2 times -2 times -3 is -6. -6 plus, oh, I'm sorry, that's a positive 6. Negative times a negative is a positive. -6 plus 6 is 0. 0 times -3 is 0. 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 times -3 is -9. 8 plus -9 is -1. So what we have here, and if it helps to have it in writing, this is going to be our x to the third power, our x squared, x to the first, x to the 0, and this is our remainder. Alrighty, so let's write out our answer here. I have 2x to the third power minus 2x squared. 0x to the first power is you don't put anything, it's just 0. Plus 3. Since it's -1, we have -1 over our divisor, which is x plus 3. And that's how we would write our answer. So, yeah, once you get the hang of it, you're good. Even if you want more practice, we'll have more practice in the classroom. Try to do 4B on your own, and then we'll cover it in class like always. If you want to see more videos on it, if you just typed in synthetic long division or polynomial synthetic long division, you'll have a bunch of videos that come up that are really helpful. I've looked into a few of them just to see how other instructors teach it, and see kind of any different approaches. But right here is very common to what the vast majority of people teach and how they teach it. So good luck, everyone. And that's the conclusion of chapter 4.3. Take care.